Thus saith the Lord unto you, be not afraid nor dismayed by reason of this great multitude. For the battle is not yours, but God's. This is taken from a portion of 2 Chronicles, chapter 20, verse 15. The title that we're dealing with today is God Gives Victory Over the Amalekites, taken from Exodus, the 17th chapter, verses 8 through 16. The time is 1445 BC, and the place is Rephidim. Golden text. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. Exodus 17:11. The lesson outline is in two parts. Part 1, a great battle. Part 2, a divine declaration. The purpose of this lesson is to make sure that Moses and Joshua were depending on God's help in facing present opposition. While the Israelites were still encamped at Rephidim, they encountered a new threat to their survival. The Amalekites attacked the Israelites. These nomadic warriors, who were descendants of Esau, picked off the most vulnerable Israelites. And they were vulnerable because the weakest ones were at the end of the group, and that's who they would attack. This was a brutal assault against God's covenant people. Everyone in the camp was exhausted from travel, so this was a bad time for a battle. God sovereignly allowed this attack to happen. The time had come for Israel to learn about war. Here was another chance for God's people to rely on him. Moses appointed Joshua as commander and instructed him to assemble a fighting force to engage the Amalekites the following day. The next day, as Joshua and his men faced the Amalekites, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed a nearby hill. There Moses lifted his hands high, grasping his staff, which represented God's power. He was entreating the Lord to help the Israelites, who were novices at war. As long as Moses kept his hands lifted up while holding the staff, Israel prevailed. When Moses' arm grew tired and he lowered them, Amalek prevailed. Eventually, Moses was nearing exhaustion. So Aaron and Hur sat him on a rock. Then, standing on either side of him, each man supported one of his arms until Joshua and his forces had finally defeated Amalek at sunset. The victory was a miracle. God's power and provision was again on display before the nation. To help the people remember, God told Moses to write the story of this battle in a book. Moses then revealed to Joshua that God planned to utterly destroy the Amalekites at a future time because of their violence upon Israel. Moses built an altar and named it, quote, "The Lord is my banner," unquote, honoring the Lord because it was he who had provided the victory. Let's notice the questions for this lesson. Number 1, who were the Amalekites and what did they do? They were descendants of Esau, who was Jacob's brother. They were a nomadic nation that lived partly by attacking other population groups and plundering their wealth. Number 2, with what task was Joshua charged? Moses called on Joshua to choose, organize, and prepare men for battle. Number 3, What made this task especially difficult? The Israelites weren't trained in using weapons or in military tactics. Number 4, what role did Moses play in the battle? Moses stood on top of a hill with the rod of God in his hand. When he raised his hands up, the Israelites prevailed. When he lowered his hands, the Amalekites prevailed. Question number 5, what did Moses' staff, the rod of God, symbolize? From the beginning, the rod had symbolized not only Moses' authority as the Lord's chosen leader, but also the supremacy, power, and presence of God. Question number 6, how did Aaron and Hur assist Moses? They had Moses to sit on a stone while they stood on each side holding up his hands. Number 7, what did the victory and the means by which it was achieved teach Israel? It was established conclusively that this victory and everyone to follow came from their all-powerful God. It assured them of his presence and that their success came from him. Question number 8, what judgment did the Lord pronounce on the Amalekites and why? The Lord issued a devastating statement, quote, I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven, unquote. The Lord was putting the Amalekites in the same category as the Canaanites and other inhabitants of the Promised Land, whom he said would be exterminated. The reason for this pronounced judgment was because of the Amalekites' hostility toward Israel continued for centuries. Number 9, how will the Lord's judgment be remembered? God told Moses to record the Lord's word concerning Amalek in a permanent record so that his judgment would be remembered. Moses was to make sure that Joshua heard this. Number 10, what did Moses name the altar he built at Rephidim, and why did he give it that name? Moses gave the altar the name Jehovah Nissi, meaning the Lord is my banner. The name was a reminder that the Lord himself was the one around whom Israel's army rallied as they went forth in battle. In concluding this lesson, let's remember that the Lord Jesus Christ is always present with us. We have all we need to be victorious in this life, but we must be utterly dependent on him and avail ourselves of his power by communing with him continually through prayer. May the Lord bless you. Let's remember to vote.